Hi everyone, Adam Harris here, Chief Market Analyst. So let's start off by looking at this coming week's economic calendar. So although in recent weeks I've been talking sort of not so concerned about the state of the US economy, one of the things I am interested in, it'll become clear when we look at the charts, is the US dollar. And so we do have a Fed interest rate decision. Although there's no rate cut expected, I really want to see how this possibly, if it potentially creates any disruption in the market, this could possibly well do something unless we see something such as GDP, for example. So this week, I'm looking at the dollar in particular, and I'm looking at the news which could potentially reverse the state of the dollar. It'll make more sense in a moment. I'll also be paying attention to the ECB interest rate decision. So they are looking at making a cut, and so looking to see if there's going to be any difference there. We could see a boost in that euro dollar. So that being said, let me take you to the charts and take you through what I'm looking at. So first of all, let's look at the volatility index. The VIX still operating near the lows. Very happy to see most of that. Market is ticking over, relatively happy. Let's go to that dollar index. Okay, so here's the sitch. We're currently in a weekly retracement, right? We were in a range on the monthly here. You can see we were in a range. We broke out of it. You can see we currently have a bearish monthly candle. And if we had to finish January with a bearish monthly candle like this, the implication would be that we would see price potentially come back within this range. However, there is still an entire week left. All right, so the next non-farm payroll we have is actually 2 Fridays from now, or at least 2 Fridays from the recording of this. This is where we are now. Next NFP is this Friday. We've got a whole week which could change the direction of the market. So all we'd really have to do is to see price potentially find some support, the dollar in this area, and then work its way up and then close above the high of this last week. And we would find ourselves in a bullish or indecisive monthly candle. And we could then, the implication would be that this dollar is going to continue higher. On the other hand, should we see it close this week lower, we'd have a very high or likely situation where we're going to see that dollar continue to weaken over the coming months. So that's really what is happening. That's what's on the table this week. We were due for a correction. We really are due, I believe, for a deeper correction. But the reality is it broke out of the range. We could see it revert back within the range, or we could see it find some support. And this week is likely to tell us which one that is. So euro dollar over here as well. Euro dollar has finally had a bit of a correction. And actually what I'm going to be looking for this week, my expectation for now, is to see this. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Let me remove the range. I'm looking to see price currently work its way back up and find back into this area to find resistance. That's what I'm looking for this week. So at least the initial part of the week, I'm looking for that weaker dollar to continue, stronger euro to continue when it gets back into this area, or potentially a little bit higher. That's when the question comes in. Do we, what's going to happen? So we've got both the ECB interest rate cut, which could potentially weaken the euro. We've got that dollar, which could possibly come back and strengthen it. So it's not entirely impossible that the euro dollar could reach this level, find some strong resistance there, and ultimately finish lower by the end of the next week. Could happen. On the other hand, should it surge up here, close above these highs, then I would actually expect it to come back within this range. And it's very difficult at this time to predict it. It's obviously very frustrating because we've been overdue for a bit of a correction. Now it looks as though, we really won't know until the end of the next week what the more likely sort of medium-term outcome is for that dollar. So cable as well, pulling back into these previous levels of support to potentially find some resistance there. Again, it looks bullish now, but this could all change by the end of the week. It could finish very bearishly, and then the implication is we're going to see that dollar continue to surge. So we've just started this last week, pretty much for the first time, getting into a nice new uptrend, and that could be over sort of midway. So unfortunately, I'm just going to have to see how price reacts. We're going to have to play it as it lies. We've had a very strong dollar up until now, and that could potentially be overextended. We could get a bit of a deeper correction, but also this stronger dollar could be the new this is what's going to happen in 2025. So it's just kind of seeing how this plays out. So looking here again, for example, dollar yen struggling with a strong level of resistance back in the moving averages here at the previous highs. So again, this could very well turn out to be a level of support that holds, and we could find price finishing higher above this if it continues to push that way. It's dollar Swissy, which has been, believe it or not, one of the strongest trends, currently enjoying a retracement on the weekly. A bullish candle here ordinarily does make a lot of sense. However, when the monthly here we have been ranging, so we could see it continue to come down. There really are two different ways this could play out, and it's just very difficult. I could see here that it is trying to find support. So let me show you here. We've got a level of support here on the daily. So we've got a nice little level of support that's formed here. We've got a lower low and we've got a higher low here. So we've got bullish divergence here. So the implication on the daily with dollar Swissy is that we're actually going to see it go back up into that uptrend. So we're seeing hints of a stronger dollar with dollar Swissy, or at least a weaker Swissy. Dollar CAD as well just does not want to quit, right? So dollar Swissy is just stuck in this range here on the daily. If we just kind of have a look at that, really doesn't want to quit it from a weekly perspective. It's producing sort of a megaphone pattern, doesn't quite want to retrace, and that has done almost 1,000 pips without a proper correction. So could we see a nice pullback and a retest of the range and then a continuation, or are we going to see it just continue to push up to previous historical highs over here? We really are looking at which way is it going to go this week, and unfortunately the behavior itself is odd. The very fact that the dollar is clearly unusually strong means that it could continue to be unusually strong. Ordinarily, I would say if this behavior, it's a little bit overextended, I'd expect it to come back. But so many markets are pushing at their levels, and therefore I think it best to be prepared that we have to wait until they actually correct before we conclusively know. It's frustrating because I want to be able to trade the stuff, and I'm just going to have to do it in real time. But for the week ahead, I can't really predict how the week is going to close out. Gold, for example, really nice consolidation on the weekly, pushing higher, looks really good, but coming into the previous highs over here. It's still a little bit overextended on the monthly, not as much as it was before, but it's also approaching what I did in the past. You may not recall, but I did compare this move here to the last time that I was actually in a bubble with gold. Previously, I've sort of compared the previous move, which puts, if it does a similar move to that in the past, it's going to work its way up to about 2,850. So it's still got some potential upside, and we need to see how that kind of plays out. So really, just to kind of recap so far, this week, I'm really going to be looking at that dollar to see if the dollar does find support and ultimately finish higher. The implication to me then would be that February and March, we're going to see that dollar just keep pushing higher. On the other hand, should it come back within the range, then it makes sense to me that we're going to see that dollar continue to weaken, but it really is in the sweet spot where I need to see where it ultimately closes. And unfortunately, it really just could go either way, because to boot, we've got FOMC and we've got rates news coming from ECB, both happening in the week. Those two events, not to mention other news events, could easily change the course of the direction here. The weekly chart's looking pretty strong, which is why a bullish candle this coming week makes sense to me. But again, I've got to keep looking. We've got basically, essentially what it comes down to is we have a contradiction between the weekly and the monthly. Need to know which one's going to play out. Moving on to crude oil. So crude oil is interesting to me because we did break out of this downward slope. We were looking at this. We can get rid of this because that's no longer valid. So the market's starting to look bullish. However, we can see that we've also managed to conveniently bump into resistance over here. And so for now, shorter term, I'm expecting crude oil to come down this week, but potentially to find support and continue to the upside. So when I look at it from a daily perspective, I am looking at this possible setup here for Monday. Could this be the pullback I've been waiting for in a new trend to the upside? Could I then see this continue up from here? So that is one idea there. I am aware we're within now potential range-like behavior. So crude oil has been, pretty choppy for a while, but it has managed to actually break out of this long-term downtrend, and therefore the potential for it to now be looking to go long is at least a potential possibility. Okay, looking at the global indices. So starting off with the Dow. Very nice pullback, still within the moving averages. Everything here looks nice and healthy. Okay, the weekly, we did break below these lows, but we still managed to just kind of hold support at this point in time. Let's go up to the daily. So that's why this chart on the left-hand side is daily. It's had a really good, strong run-up. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see this pullback, find support, and continue higher over the coming week. Not too worried about that. So the Dow, to me, looking as though it still has potential upside. Weekly from last week following through looks really good. Okay, so then moving on to the S&P here, finding a nice little bit of support. So let's just put that nice level in there. That's beautiful. A little bit of resistance meets support. I'm actually going to bin that one. I think that's a better one. Nice, looks good. It's a double bottom effectively, or even a triple bottom within an uptrend. Should be really good. So for now, I would expect this to continue. However, the red flag when I look at this is the continued highs on price here, while at the same time, the continued bearish divergence over here. So this market is effectively running on steam, but that doesn't mean that it can't continue to push higher. It's had a really good run the last week. Any kind of a pullback into here for me would initially be seen as a buying opportunity to continue going higher. So again, here's what we have is this contradiction between that weekly implying that at some point we're going to get a consolidation or a correction, and the daily looking really good. So just that contradiction between the two. For now, I'm going to lean bullish while acknowledging that we are running on a bit of extra juice. Okay, NASDAQ. Nice little pullback continuation, interestingly enough, for one of the strongest markets. Why did it fail to really, why did it not close much, much higher this week? It's got a bit of a resistance level that you could see failing to really push beyond that. Had a bit of a move up here, but nowhere near as good as the S&P 500. Even the Dow did, relatively speaking, did better. Now we've also got a gravestone doji here as well, which often shows up at the end of a really... it often shows up at the end of a kind of a trend that's running out of steam. So I'm looking at these are little red flags, right? So little red flags, but we've had some pullbacks here. We're not that overextended. Here we look okay. A little bit of, as I said, bearish divergence between these kind of lows. So it's something to pay attention to. So to me, I kind of see that as just, again, running on that little bit of extra juice, and I'm being cautious. But interesting enough, in so many ways, this does look relatively healthy in isolation. So I'm leaning bullish, while at the same time, as I said, on the Nasdaq, I beg your pardon, on the S&P, while acknowledging that we are running on a little bit of extra juice. I love the look here of the Russell 2000. It's broken out of this range, pulled back, and produced a very nice bullish candle at a level of resistance, now potentially acting as support. So this looks really good. And overall, the US economy should still be doing very well. I've got the bears are saying the markets are running on, like juice, they're running on empty. And the bulls are saying, look, everything looks fantastic. The reality is that the foundation for a really healthy market is there, but you can get a bubble and a healthy market. You can get, additional stuff. So when the market's healthy, the job market's healthy, and you're doing rate cuts, that's a little bit weird because the market didn't need it. You're meant to kind of do rate cuts when the market's struggling a bit. The markets aren't struggling. And so what's interesting about that is the rate cuts haven't really done much. I think I would anticipate that this current administration is going to give as many rate cuts as it can to keep the market going. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the underlying fundamentals are healthy. So we'll just go off the technicals. And right now the technicals are showing some tiny, tiny signs of weakness, but otherwise they're more bullish than anything else. Look at the FTSE here. So the FTSE, what I like about this one, the UK broke out of this kind of consolidation that it was in. Looks pretty good. It actually went on and produced some nice new fresh highs. This monthly looking good. We can see that nice bullish candle, but it really has got to we've also at the same time got that bearish divergence again creeping in. So the implication with most of these is that either we're going to get a consolidation or a deeper correction. The DAX. Beautiful, looking really good. In fact, here the MACD looks great. MACD looks good here. I'm really happy with all of this. It's overextended though away from the moving averages, so definitely any kind of a pullback. For now, for me, any kind of a pullback here would represent a potential buying opportunity. I quite like this. So definitely preferring this over the FTSE, and then also liking the look of this right now. It looks a bit healthier to me than some of the US markets. But again, I still say some of those markets are bullish and they could continue to go for a while. So just exercising some sort of common sense with those. I'm not seeing any major red flags now. I'm saying that, yes, I know in the future there will be some red flags and I'll keep an eye out for them. Not seeing them just yet. So cryptos, Bitcoin. Still hovering around this 100K level. Still is hovering at that point. We could see here for the week. So far, it's trying to continue up, but it really hasn't closed much higher. And if it does ultimately sort of come back down here or break these lows again, I would then expect a deeper correction down towards 80,000. So right now this week, although price just dipped below the level and then finished as a bullish engulfing candle, it still hasn't really successfully managed to follow through. So what does it mean? It means there's not really enough buyers above this level. There's plenty below here, not enough below this. So any kind of a dip below this, buyers will jump in, but there's not enough to keep that momentum going. So still just exercising some caution there. But I would say to you now that it's leaning slightly more bullish than bearish. Okay, it's still stuck within this range. There's a little bit of a range here. Let me just draw that in so that we could sort of just frame it that way. Excuse me. And let's just see if it could get its way out of that. But yeah, otherwise kind of doesn't look terrible. Just a little bit overextended over here. Let's have a quick look at Ethereum in comparison to that Ethereum over here. Last week, I quite liked the kind of look of it. It has a double top, so some strong resistance in this area. Has pulled back. And again, not looking super bullish just yet. It might just continue to creep up. But what I will say is this, if it was really, really bullish, we would have seen the last week finish much higher. So it's battling a little bit, but that doesn't mean that it's about to fall off a cliff at all. It just means that it just, again, it's sleepy. As Deadpool would say, it's just very, very sleepy. Okay, so Apple. So kind of here's an interesting one for me. Apple, from a share dealership, share ownership point of view, from an investing perspective, looks like a really good spot to buy some Apple shares. Here's why I'm hesitating a little bit. I'm hesitating because we've got this clear bearish divergence here, meaning we've got a high here, we've got a lower high here. It's looking possibly a little bit divergent, which could mean that we're actually in for a slightly deeper correction back down towards these lows. We could see it coming back in towards that 200 mark. We could see that happening. But otherwise, in every other respect, to me, this represents at least a minimum sort of buying opportunity for myself. This is not financial advice for you guys. This is just something that I'm looking at. Level of support. So what I'm going to be looking for this week, ideally, would be a nice little bit of a, actually, you know what, let me draw it on the other chart, is looking for, ideally for price to find some good support here. So I'd love to see a nice bullish candle this coming week, which would, to me, would be a good sign. It's going to push higher off this level of support. But again, I'm also prepared for it to do a slightly deeper correction. The reason I'm showing you this is because this should not really be showing bearish divergence here. It should be looking good to keep going. This looks good as well. So long term, so far I'm relatively happy with the trend. I guess my question is, are we going to get a deeper correction or not? And that could be seen as a healthy thing as well. Microsoft. Okay, so Microsoft so far, consolidation, bit of another gravestone doji, by the way. So that's two so far in the charts I'm looking at. It's a relatively rare occurrence to see two of them out of these charts. Interesting, noteworthy. Nice bullish candle here. So nice little consolidation and a breakout. It's pushing further. Looks pretty good over there. So for now, I'm bullish on this. It looks pretty good. Not seeing too many red flags, but we do need to get past this very clear level of resistance. Let's just bring it down to where it really is, which is at 450. We need to be able to get past that, close it, and break past these lows. Amazon, really nice bull flag, pull past here, bull flag, took off. For now, my expectation is for this to continue up to 240 in the shorter term. Is a little bit overextended on the monthly, but everything looks super healthy here. A little bit of bearish divergence over here, but that's because of this breakout here. The weekly looking really good, monthly looks really good, just if not a little bit overextended. So again, here, if we suddenly see this week where I'm expected to continue upward and we see it suddenly pull back, and we see that on a few of the other charts that also look healthy, then I would see that as some red flags coming back into the market. But right now, a few of these look pretty good. Google, you can see definitely battling with a level showing some signs of exhaustion here, but managing to gap up and close slightly near the highs. The daily looks pretty good. That's a standard kind of a break and a retest over here. And so I really want to see if this could continue and close above these highs over there. The monthly also looking pretty good. Okay, so what could be happening across most of these is that they don't have too much more upside left. That could simply be the case, and then we'll see how that finishes over the coming week. Meta. So I spoke about Meta, just all the exhaustion weeks coming in here, but we've seen it over here and then it manages to push past that. This looks really healthy. This is starting to diverge. So what do I mean by that? Let's just go show you this. We've got a series of higher highs kind of creeping in here, but at the same time, we're sort of getting a series of lower highs sort of coming in here. You know what, for now, it's not overextended. It looks kind of okay. But again, I would say we could be seeing this thing slowly starting to just run out of steam. For now, I'll just kind of stick with it. I've marked this area in orange because I was curious to see if it would run out of steam in this area. And so actually what I'll do is just extend that up to 700. So we've got a nice round number here. Let's see if we can make it to 700 or if we start to see more and more bearish divergence and more bearish action starting to come in here. Excuse me. But, you know, it's been going and running incredibly well for a while, but at some point we're going to have a bit of a deeper correction. NVIDIA. So NVIDIA I was just having a look at earlier. So NVIDIA's monthly chart is worth paying attention to. Lots of wicks above, which is a sign of exhaustion. What it means is wicks below, I mean, there's plenty of buyers coming in here, able to prop it up, but not enough to keep it going to the upside here. So collectively, you could argue that it's going to tread water or it needs a bit of a deeper correction, but it's running out of enthusiasm at the top, which is not to say the business isn't sound, just that it had a real big boon, maybe, or a real big boost through popularity, and now needs to just kind of catch up to where its kind of true value lies. So with this one, you know, we've got no real trend on the daily at the moment. It doesn't look terrible. I'm not seeing massive red flags, but again, you know, here's another one as well, where we're getting a series of sort of highs here and then continued lows here. So the implication when you look at the weekly chart is that we are going to see NVIDIA come back down, and that price is going to come back down, potentially at least down towards the 100 mark, towards the 90. That's when you look at the weekly. It either has to consolidate until this levels out and then keep going, or we have to have a bit of a correction. But either way, it just needs to take a bit of a breather. So for now, my expectation, I guess, is to see it kind of attempt to go up or go sideways, and then essentially not much more. I wouldn't really expect any massive boost this week, successful boost. A boost up and a close lower is what I would kind of see something which appears to be a success, but then it fails and comes back down, would actually ultimately be a sign of failure. So that's kind of, I'm cautious on NVIDIA and finishing up on Tesla. So here's what I found interesting. Excuse me. So the daily produced this double bottom, which is a very nice bullish move, which is supposed to produce at least a 1-to-1, and we should have seen a bigger move. We should have seen this go to 450. We didn't. In fact, even now it's kind of closing down towards the lows. When we look at it from a weekly perspective, this is a nice bullish candle. So we had a move up, some wicks coming in, consolidation, bullish candle, and we didn't even break the high. So what does that mean? It means that this bullish signal and this bullish signal got no follow through. They had no follow through. They really should have got follow through, and they didn't. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the markets is not showing enough buyer enthusiasm above this point. And it's not exclusive to Tesla. It's not exclusive to Tesla. I'm seeing it a bit on NVIDIA as well. We could see we had a big move to the upside. We closed down by the lows. We had another attempt to back down so far by these lows. So this is what it kind of leaves me with this coming week. I'm really going to be looking to see whether we break these lows here. If we break these lows here, move down to 300, makes a lot of sense. We'll have a lot of buyers here trying to prop it up, but what's happening is we're struggling to find buyers above this area. So like I said, unless we get something out of the news this week, which suddenly jazzes up the markets, and all of a sudden we get a boost across the board. But a lot of these are showing signs of sort of lethargy right now, and they've had some really good runs. Kind of remember from September, they didn't really take a break. We didn't get a bearish September. We had a strong finish, and so what's happening is possibly they're feeling the hangover now of pushing through the whole of 2024. So we're going to see how that goes for this week. From this perspective, I'm very cautious. I'm still leaning bullish. I'm waiting to see if the next week brings more red flags or essentially gets rid of them. So just exercising some caution with these, just explaining to you what I'm going to be looking for in each of them, how the dollar itself could potentially do a bit of a funny move, and then we'll just have to see how that all ultimately plays out in the markets this week. So this week is a little bit more unclear than normal because there really are, to be valid, there are two different ways it can go. Thank you very much. I'll leave you with this. Any thoughts? I'd like to hear them. And have a great week. Thank you.